Hey there, bold one. Today on the podcast, I have actor Elijah Kahn. Elijah is based in the UK. To date, his most notable project was a movie called Slave Market. And this was done by NBC Studios, which would basically be the Warner Brothers of the Middle East.
Yeah.
So it was a huge production with a huge reach in its audience. But the reason that I've invited Elijah on today is because he's also developed an app called Accentify. It's a way for us actors to quickly and affordably learn a new accent and fun too. So, Elijah, welcome to the
Thank you.
podcast. Thank you so much for jumping on. How are you doing
I'm
today?
doing absolutely wonderful. Busy, busy, busy working on this. I've also got a call back for a short film, which is going to be filming in the next few months. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. But yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
the introduction. Slave Market was a TV show which we filmed back in Cairo a couple of years ago now. It's on season 2. So if anybody is watching it, then give it a tune in. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, excellent. Very good. Well, maybe let's just start with a quick
Yeah.
journey through what has led you to this point. I know you are an actor, you're a working actor, but you're also pretty savvy when it comes to learning how to create different income
Mm.
streams for you that are based around acting. I mean, as we've seen with COVID, with the strikes, and even now that everybody was saying, oh, there's going to be a flood of all these new auditions coming in
Yeah.
2024. And then Dateline, just, I don't know if you saw that article on Dateline just recently.
No,
Not Dateline, Deadline,
what was that?
Deadline, saying, well, maybe not 2024, but 2025 is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So we have to have other ways to make money that is adjacent to what we do so that people don't forget what we do and think of us in other ways.
No, I couldn't agree more. I haven't seen this article from Deadline, but yeah,
Deadline.
but
Yeah.
I cannot agree more with what you've just said. Especially after the strikes last year, we all were sitting there primed, thinking we're going to have auditions flooding in all the time. And you know what? It did pick up again, but it wasn't matching the expectations that we thought it would be. And again, I think
Exactly.
it will always
Yeah.
comes back down to expectations. Expectations could set you up for so much disappointment. If you're sitting there on your laurels, hoping for these auditions to come in and they don't, you just back in your room again thinking, what am I going to do? So I have been exploring different ways to support myself while being a
Yeah.
working actor. I've been there, done it, done the whole thing after drama school where I would be bartending, working odd jobs, waking up at 4 in the morning and traveling for an hour and a half to some random place in the UK or in London to work for the train fare back, realistically. And it was hard. And I don't really have a problem with these jobs at all, but it's the mentality that we get fed in when we're studying, which is a problem to me.
Yes. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely.
I definitely want to get to everything else because I think this money mindset is so important for actors to change. So many actors feel like if money is somehow a priority, it makes them less committed to their art or less of a good
Yeah.
actor. For me, in all transparency, I had it too for many years. I had problems knowing my worth and asking for it, saying, this is what it costs to hire me, and I'm worth it because I have X amount of experience and standing behind that. But I think so many actors really have this kind of I'd love what do you think? Where do you think it stems from?
That's a really interesting question. I just want to pick up on one thing you mentioned, knowing your worth, which I think we talk about a lot in the industry as actors. What is our worth? What can we give? And, we should say no to this and no to that. And we should know what value we can provide. But when it comes to the day to day, it doesn't translate over. I don't know where it stems from, but I can tell you where this is propagated as a mindset. And I think it really comes down from watching other people who were actors before us go through the whole starving artist route. When you're training, they will tell you about being a struggling actor and what it means to be a proper artist. I don't even know what it means to be a proper artist. I think artistry is your own personal journey, and that might be airy fairy to say, but it's true.
No,
You
I
make it what it
agree. I
is.
mean, the very definition of being an artist that stands out from everybody else is being true to yourself.
Authentic is a word that springs to mind for me.
Authentic. Yeah.
Authenticity, and this is something I was just thinking about it when you mentioned it. but authenticity, and it goes much beyond the roots of who you are as an artist. You're straight into the audition room and your preparedness for audition and on-set preparedness. And after you finish this, your work on set, there's so much it goes to, and being grounded in yourself, grounded in your own truth and authentic is the place to be for an artist. And I think this is where there are some things lacking in the mentality that is given to young aspiring actors. In fact, let's just start from the graduation point. Everybody was hungry, ready to go. We wanted to go into the big wide world and be actors. Of course we did, because when we started, we all knew that acting is going to be a hard journey. We talked about it in the acting lessons, how hard it's going to be. But then fast forward 3 years or so, after graduation, we had a tweet about Everybody's Spotlight, which is the database for actors in the UK, of
Okay.
course. Good thing to mention that. You'd go through every single person's spotlight. It didn't exist anymore, apart from a few people's.
Oh my god.
Yeah, everybody quit. And I think the statistic is something like 80% of new acting graduates quit in the first 3 years of graduation, I believe.
Wow.
And you got to ask yourself, why does this happen? Um, there are a collection of reasons why, I think. But it comes back to the whole mentality.
Yeah, honestly, I think it boils down to one thing.
Yeah,
It's having a plan and a strategy. You need to have a framework within which to work. For me,
yeah,
it revolves around understanding what your brand is. I call it your energetic
yeah,
signature. So, first is that, because that is then woven into everything else you do. So, it's woven into your marketing, it's woven into your networking. It is who you are and how you come across. And that thing that makes you special, your unicorn factor, whatever you want to call it. It's that thing that, and it's usually that thing that you think is holding you back
yeah, yeah.
in a lot of ways. That's your superpower. That's that thing that makes you, nobody else can compete with that.
But the thing is, everybody, when they graduate, they're so desperate for roles, join
Yeah,
with an agent. And if we're taking out the drama school, people who are just aspiring to be actors have an even harder route to getting, and then getting casted from whatever work they might have and getting a show reel. It's sad to say, it is harder for people who haven't trained. Hopefully one
for
day
sure.
a
But
change can be made with that as well.
but they should
Yeah,
train. I mean, you wouldn't just decide you were going to be an opera singer one day and then start singing without having worked at it. People can train in different ways. But the
yeah,
thing
yeah.
about being an actor is we need feedback because we are the product. We're wearing the lenses of our life experiences, good and bad. So we're not necessarily the best judge to know that what we're sending is being received in the way we're intending it.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
agree. I think it all comes back to being true to who you are when you go towards castings and messaging agents. For instance, I remember when I graduated, I would be sending out email to casting directors telling them what I was in and what I was doing. And here are my headshots. Please look at my spotlight, look at my showreel, all these student films which I've done on look at it.
Right.
And over time, I remember some actor said to me one day, and it just seems like common sense. You've gone against what your parents have said or whatever it might be to do this crazy career as an actor. And so you need to make it work and you're going out and being desperate. But in reality, you need to take a step back and exactly as you mentioned, find your superpower, find what resonates with you as an individual. And if it resonates with you, that authenticity and trueness to who you are will show in every single thing that you do, including being
Yeah.
in the audition room or prior to when you're trying to get an agent or whatever it might be. Everybody needs to have some level of expertise in the craft. What I meant by the training aspect was the traditional drama school type of thing, going to drama school and things
Mhm.
like that. Because again, it comes back to authenticity. There's a phrase, the RADA machine.
I went there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I do agree with you. And then I'll tell you what I was gonna say.
it goes to all acting institutions where you start wearing all blacks and you do the same, you all work on the same craft. And I feel like somewhere along the way, when it comes,
As we both sit here in black
do you know
today.
what? That's so true. Even my jeans are black.
Yeah.
So I think somewhere along the way, you forget the thing that makes you the actor who you are and
Yeah,
regurgitating your training. And I think that something needs to happen where you find that trueness along the training method as well. Maybe after graduation or
yeah.
prior to it, but please. What were you gonna
I
say?
so agree with you. I had a conservatory style
Yeah.
training that we used the school I was at in Chicago used to fly in the instructors from RADA, and then a lot of us did a final semester at RADA. So, I didn't actually go to RADA, but I did go to RADA. It was like one of those in between things. But that's the thing I think can be really dangerous about these conservatory style training programs is that they're very dogmatic. And I know I had an instructor. I think you have to really watch who you are putting your career and your life in the hands of.
Right.
Because while, yes, I learned a ton, he also really discouraged us from auditioning while we were at the school. And I think because he was afraid of losing his bread and butter, he's now dead, so I can say all this. But the truth is, that is also a learning experience that you need.
Yeah.
To get out there and start auditioning and working. But he instilled this like fear of God that we were going to audition badly and ruin our career right off the get-go. And I think it's just not true. You have to have a balance. But the other thing is what they teach you everything about acting,
Yeah.
right? In acting school. But they teach you nothing about the business of being an actor.
Yeah.
And this is what's missing. Because you can be the most talented actor in the world, but if all you're doing is showing your talent to your weekly workshop participants and the coach, how sad is that? You are not sharing your gift with the world. You're not putting it out there for people beyond your classroom, your workshop to see. And I think it can be a little bit of a catch-22 because it's scratching that itch of acting and it's working that muscle, which is great. The bad part is that it scratches that itch, and then you're not quite as hungry to go get actual work.
I think there's many layers to the whole thing. I think acting is, for me, one of the most rewarding things I could do. I'm sure you can agree with it. From start to end, the process, when you're working on a script, however your process is, to rehearsing with your fellow castmates, to actually being on stage or in front of the camera, the whole thing is just the reason I started the whole process. So it's the business side of it is super important as well. One of the great things we were taught in acting, we had a seminar about this, and it still sticks with me to this day. Our head of acting told us about how it's important to remain human despite going through this whole acting drama that you go through in the industry. There's so much rejection, all this fluff around acting that you need to be true to who you are. He's a very successful actor. He just showed us pictures of how he would do things to keep himself going. It's not just about the business side of acting and the making money. It's also things to keep yourself mentally happy and mentally going.
So what kind of pictures was he
Just
showing?
himself as a chef, working in the background, cooking for some people, doing silly things. So we all knew him as this big shot actor, right? Seeing him in this more humble images, it's such a simple thing, but it kind of sticks with me. I can remember the images to this day. And I'm thinking to myself, that's so true. It's not just about the glitz and the glamour and going to backstage events and talking to cast and directors about what they're working on. It's about what you do when you come home as well. And then the next day,
Yes.
when you don't have that event on, and how are you going to put
Who
who
are
are
you?
you? How are you going to
Yeah.
keep going? And how are you
Yeah.
going to put the money on the table? Why do you, coach of yours who was discouraging you, why do you think he was doing that? Was there a fear of the industry or what you could do?
We're talking like 40, 38 years ago. He was much older, so maybe he had a distorted, old-fashioned view of things. But honestly, I mean, I've thought a lot about this, but I honestly think that he was doing it because he was afraid of losing students to the industry,
That's really
like
interesting.
people going off and not going to his Rice Weekly. So it became a lifestyle centered around learning and growing, but there were no clear markers. There were levels you had to go through, but there weren't clear. I honestly think he was a working actor, but I think he actually made more money, or at least his money was steady with the school.
Yeah.
And steady money is you know,
Comforts,
steady money.
comforts.
This is what we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier, right? It's important for us to have steady money, but I don't think it should ever be at the expense of other people. Like what you're doing with Accentify, like having this app that because this is something actors we all struggle with is learning an accent. Some people learn it more easily than other people. Some do not. I think it's really important for actors to have a way to learn an accent that makes it accessible, you
Yeah,
know?
I agree. The whole
Yeah.
reason I started this is twofold. One was the business side of it, which we'll talk more into. I know you've like dabbled into that story a little bit, a topic, but another reason is the post drama school, post training ability to go out and do training, like carry on your training, which I find to be very expensive and inaccessible. And I don't know if you would agree with this, but it's after drama. So let's say you're in drama school and you're training. Every day you have, your 9 a.m. to 11, you have acting class. And after that, you have singing. And then after that, you have movement and then body and voice, so on and so forth. And you go away in the evening and you're rehearsing with your castmates. You wake up again, rinse and repeat every single day for 3 years, right? And you're putting on shows and you're doing films. It's very intense, nonstop training. You graduate one day, boom, cut off, and you don't have that same intensity of training again. So what do? You go and like, you do the odd Meisner workshop every single week on the Tuesday evenings for an hour. You're traveling for an hour just to get there. And then you're trying to find the money to put together to do the audition prep sessions with a casting director somewhere else. Odd bits and bobs here and there, and nothing is like structured or tied together. Overall, the training after drama school is hard to come by. And if it is, it's expensive. Now, I was looking at some summer workshops and they're like, you know, £600, £500. Whether or not I have the money, I know that for most actors who are working as ushers or bartenders or the traditional working actor lifestyle, it's very expensive to go and do this. You had to put a lot of money aside just to go and do these trainings. Even the Stanislavski workshops or body and voice or just vocal training with a vocal coach is expensive. So I wanted to do
Yeah.
something which could empower actors again to continue their training. It's only one element of it, but I wanted to do something which is affordable and accessible. That's the whole thing which Accentify is. It's making accent training accessible, affordable, and fun again. Um, so it's going to be an app developed by me and my co-founder, Bo Thomas, who's a world-renowned accent coach. He's worked in RADA, I think, pretty sure. He's worked in the most of the drama schools you can think of. A lot of the shows you see on TV, movies, has a whole A-list clientele. So if there's anybody who's the best person for providing accent training affordably and accessibly to actors, it's going to be him. And we're working on this together to deliver it to actors as soon as we can. So we've got a strong team, we've got a prototype, we've got everything going, and it's just making the next steps now. And I think this should stretch out to much more than accent training. So maybe not me in the future. Someone else can provide something else. I've been talking every single day with actors and they've been saying, hey, you're doing this accent training platform. Can you do something for this? And like vocal training. And you can see the demand is there for people to carry on their training. And stems
Yeah.
back to a reason why people quit within the first few years. It's hard to continue as an actor and training. Like you need to put the money on the table. And if you're just doing odd bits and bobs and having a short film once a year and you're not getting represented, why are you continuing to pay for those Meisner workshops every single week? Why are you going to these casting workshops? You don't see the return. And it's just an expense coming out every single day or week when you're doing these really expensive things. And then you just think to yourself one day, I'm just going to pack it. So hopefully this will be able to provide something to actors, which is a further ability to continue.
Yeah. I think that there are many types of situations and apps that could be I just had an actor on a couple weeks ago who's an American who's living in Prague, and he is developing an app. It's still in its beta stage, so it's still in the testing stage, but it's being tested through Apple. So I'm not sure if you're doing that with yours yet or if you already did it. But in any case, it's all about learning lines,
Yeah.
and because we need that too. Sometimes we just need you know, an easier way to learn our lines, right? I mean, everybody has their method. I always would just record it. I use Twisted Wave. I don't know if you know that app, but it has nothing to do with actors. It's an actual audio recording thing that I've used to record voiceover work and stuff when I've been on the road
Mm,
because it'll record it in waveform. And also, you can adjust all this stuff. In any case, so I usually use that and just I record the whole thing and then I erase my lines and I just play it back. But the problem
interesting.
with that is yeah, the problem with that is that you're aiming to get the timing just right for the way you recorded it that one time. So where with, this other actor's app, What's My Line, I think is the name of it, um, it's better because the app can tell when you stop speaking, and it also knows, just it knows what your last words are. So then it'll come in. So if I take a while
Uh,
to figure it out, the app is going to wait until I figure it out. It's not just like, "Oh, you spoke that in 10 seconds last time, and now I'm gonna come in 10 seconds." So it's a good program. Yeah.
That sounds like an
And
amazing
I
app.
think that's yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And there are obviously yes, okay, that's not training per se, and yet it's a wonderful way to just hone your
Yeah.
self-taping skills, you know, which is and there are things that we can do without spending a ton of money. Although I do think that it's really important to get that feedback, right? So but even, community is one of my 5 pillars.
I
For
agree.
me, it's mindset, branding, marketing, networking, and community. And whether that community is just made up of your peers and coaches, or whether extends beyond that, but it needs to be people who understand what the industry needs and what it is that you are trying to give, right?
Yeah.
So that they can give you the feedback you need to know if you are hitting the mark or not, if you're on brand, if your messaging is correct, right?
So do you get this feedback? You talk to your community a lot, I guess your actor friends and casting directors, and through this podcast as well. I think it's going to be a wonderful route to get this feedback. Is that what your process is?
My process as an actor is yes, through peers, and I also work with coaches, that. My process as a coach is the same type of thing because community is built into my program, and I only bring people in who are trained actors who've been in the business for at least 3 years, so I think it's interesting that you said that's when most people drop out. So I unconsciously made that sort of my criteria, I guess, but without knowing that that was a statistic, but it makes sense because I want people who are willing to push through it. Right? If you're just somebody who's gonna give up, then my program is not for you because it's not something to be taken lightly. Look, if this was something that you could just figure out like that, we'd all be,
Yeah, exactly.
having 1,000 scripts thrown at us every day, right? So it's something that takes a lot of work and dedication and thought, self-awareness, and feedback, right? It's so important. So for me, when I work with my clients, it's
Mm.
about helping them. I don't tell them anything. It's about helping them figure out who they are as an actor and what they have to give, right? Of course, knowing you have some cards that you're holding in your hand. You can't be delusional, right? You can finesse those
Yeah.
cards to a certain extent, but we have to play with the cards that we have in our hand, right? I'm not going to be a 22-year-old hot young thing because I'm a 57-year-old woman, right? So you have to play with the cards that are in your hand.
I think you look fantastic. So you can be
Oh, well,
at any age, you can look absolutely fantastic, and you definitely do. But I completely agree with what you're saying, and it's like the cards you're dealt, and it comes back to, for me personally, the the eagerness to go out. I think like, the keenness and eagerness is beautiful when you're a fresh salmon swimming up the stream as an actor. It is wonderful.
yeah,
It's so
yeah.
needed, but directing it, and I think as a coach, you can maybe speak on this as well, like how you can direct that as an actor to best complement your abilities and best showcase who you are. Not, and it's not just about the casting directors and directors and whoever needs you, whoever you need, but also to yourself. So you're able to understand what you can provide and who you are.
It's so important. Okay, I get it. So many actors are like, "No, I don't wanna do that because I don't wanna limit what I can do."
Yeah.
But the problem is if you don't do it, it limits you. So if you don't know what you have to sell, and I think for a long time I didn't, you know, I know as a young actress, I just whatever, you know, I was getting cast, but I didn't know I just thought it was because I was so extremely talented, you know. But
Hot young 20-year-old, right?
but I didn't right, exactly. But I had no when I returned to the industry after taking a 16-year hiatus to raise my son and looked back on, well, okay, how did I do that last time? It was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then it was like trying to figure it out, how I did it. And actually didn't have a clue. It was all based on luck and, being young and eager and in the right place at the right time, knowing some right people. But this time around, I knew that those were not my same circumstances. So I actually needed to figure out another way. And that's when I really, I'm a voracious learner, which is a huge part of why I have this podcast, so I can talk with other actors and casting directors and producers, everybody who has the potential to move the needle on our
Yeah.
careers and find out what are the frameworks, what are the pieces, what are the commonalities that working actors have so to get more work,
Yeah.
right?
So, uh, I completely agree. Can I tell you a little bit about how I changed my thinking process from when I was young?
I would love to hear
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
This comes with a little story, if I can also tell this little story. So
absolutely.
fantastic. Okay. So, when I was 22-ish, I'm 28 now, but when I was 22-ish, I was still training in some institution, which is amazing place. But regardless of that, we had a guy who came in one day to give a seminar to us. He was an actor who'd been to all the top schools, the RADAs and Lambdas, the Guildhall. I think he like graduated from like three of them. He had a top agent. Everything was all the boxes you can tick as an actor. He had ticked, right? And we're sitting there, massive hall of people, young, aspiring actors. None of us really have had a job so far. Barely even any of us are represented, and we're barely a foot into the industry. And he's telling us what life is like and what we can expect. And he tells us, okay, so what I recommend to all of you guys is to, if you when you come out of this institution, you're not going to have any money. You're not going to have a dime to your name. So it's going to be hard to rent. I recommend just couch surfing on your friend's couch and just sleeping there. And we're like, yes, fantastic. And make starving artist. And he carries on. He's like, okay, I didn't have any money to pay for the underground fare, the TFL fare, which is our metro system here. I don't know where people are listening from, but I didn't have the money to pay for this underground fare. So what I would do is I'd just jump the barriers and I'd go through to my audition. And we're looking at this guy like, he is the creme de la creme of all actor we can think of. And this is the lifestyle he's leading. And I am not joking. I remember the feeling I had then was, this is the life I need to lead. This is a starving artist,
Mm.
struggling artist life. I have to, um,
Taking
ex-
risks for his career.
exactly. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I have to do this. I have to take this massive risk, be broke, have no money, jump barriers, not have a place over my head. I need to have this starving artist, super uh, going nowhere type of lifestyle to make it. And then I'll make it, I'll have this amazing success story afterwards. And I'll be able to tell the same thing to other actors. And this is a thing which I'm like, it needs to change. So I became that, right? Like I didn't, luckily, I was living in my parents' house, so I didn't have to couch surf, but I didn't have any money, and I would be doing the same thing. Like instead of jumping over barriers, I just pass through with the person in front of me and do this kind of stuff, and go to auditions. And I wake up at 4, like I was telling you before, and go to jobs which I just didn't have, didn't give me enough money. I had a job which is paid me £15 for a 3-hour shift, and I would go there for the 3-hour shift. the fare to get there and the fare to come back and the lunch money would be more than the money I was getting. And the
Oh my
only
gosh.
reason I worked there, only single reason I worked there, excuse me, was because it was a place where actors and casting directors hung out, right? That's the only reason I worked
Mm.
there. And the point being, I lived this lifestyle for a few years, and then I realized to myself, like, this is, I'm like sad, I have no money, and I'm just creating things, trying to live a starving artist lifestyle. It doesn't need to be like this. And if I wanted to go to an audition, like this whole concept of, I can have this, 0 hour contract job, you still have to cancel a shift to get your shift retaken by somebody else. You have to ask for permission. I think instead of older actor coming in to my younger self, telling us all this stuff about couch surfing and jumping barriers, we should more have been given the expertise and knowledge to say how we can make acting a profitable career by also having a profitable income stream on the side, something which gives us power to ourselves and empowers us as not just actors, but as people to go out and do something. And if in the future we want to, instead of acting, we want to become an artist or a poet or whatever, we still can do whatever creative outlet we want to pursue because we have something alongside it, which is the engine for that life, for that lifestyle. Do you know what I mean by that?
I could not agree with you more, Elijah. I think that's so well said. Yeah, it's this it's a catch-22. It's this downward spiral, right? And it doesn't lead to happiness. It leads to frustration and feeling like you have to abandon what you love so that you can actually live a normal life and meet friends for a drink once a
Yeah.
week and maybe go see a movie once a week, which I mean, I also, went through that starving artist thing and would be like, there was a bar we used to go to, the Rainbow Room, and they had $1 beers, so that was that, and we never went out to dinner. We always dodged paying for public transportation. I mean, it was like, just all these things, right? Living on, like, I can remember I would buy a chicken and cook it at the beginning of the week and sort of eat, chicken with salad, chicken sandwich, chicken burrito, chicken, right? And it would just be like all these different ways to stretch this one thing
Wow.
throughout the week. Yeah. Or, pasta, potatoes. I ate a lot of potatoes. you know, Good thing I was young. But
Meal deals.
yeah, exactly. And I I also I love that you touched on that it empowers you because acting as a career can be very disempowering.
Yeah.
I don't believe it needs to be. I don't. I think that if you have a strategy and a framework that gives you actionable strategies to counteract when, for instance, if you're not getting auditions, there are things you can do. If you're not getting callbacks, there are things you can do. There are always places you can look and things you can do. So, but this empowerment thing, it gives you confidence. And confidence is one of the through lines because I always ask all the casting directors on my podcast, what is that? What is that thing that an actor has when they walk in the room and you know that, wow, they've got something special. What confidence? It's
Yeah.
confidence. So anywhere you can get that in your life, just the fact of getting it is going to help you be a more confident actor. You will be more confident in yourself. You'll feel more empowered. You will know that you are capable of certain things. I think this is part of it as well because we as actors, so many of us, only measure our successes by bookings.
Yeah. I agree.
And there are so many other ways to measure your success in addition to bookings. I'm not saying they're not a measure of success, they certainly are. But there are other ways to add to that so that you're not just looking at this and going, "Oh, wow, I only had 5 jobs last year. I suck." You know?
What do you use to measure your success then? Or what do you recommend actors to measure their success?
One thing I think is the relationships that you're cultivating. That's one measure of success. So, who are these? Are they actual relationships or are they just transactional? So are you developing authentic relationships with people who have the power to move the needle on your career? Or are they just like you asking them to consider you or you reaching out to tell them, I'd love to be on your show or whatever it is? Because those are transactional and those are not going to do anything for you. So that's one thing is cultivating actual relationships. Another thing to look at is who are the casting directors who are calling you in again and again and again? You may not have booked with them, but you have already won that room. You have already booked the room. So that's a win. And that is something that has value when you take it to, for instance, if you're looking for a new agent, you can say, these are the casting directors. These 13 casting directors are the ones that always call me in. I haven't yet booked anything, but they believe in me and they keep calling me in. So that's a win. Another win is a callback.
Yeah.
That's a huge win. Huge. And it's a win that you can use when you're having a conversation with an agent or even having a conversation with a director or thing, when you're talking as one human being to another, right? Because for one, they know the ratio of auditions to bookings. We're not talking about people outside of the industry because they don't get it. But the people within the industry understand the ratio of auditions to bookings. So when you say, I got a call back for this thing, then it's like, oh, that was a big production. That one says, okay. So, and then they know you were like one of two, maybe one of three people that they auditioned at that level for that role. So I think those are three things that people should look at right off the bat. And then, of course, they're beyond, there are other things, mastering a new accent, that's a win. Mastering any new skill, that's a win. And I think also truly understanding who you are and what to offer, what your brand is, right? I play fierce, fallible women who walk the razor's edge between light and dark, women who may stumble, but they're not going to go down without a fight. And if when you hear me say that, you're like, okay, yeah, I could see that, right? So I play strength, and I think this is something that a lot of actors really fear. Is like, yeah, but if I only play strong, then I can't play vulnerable. And that's not true because we're playing our energetic signature. The things that make up our energetic signature are all on a spectrum. So on that spectrum, right? So if
Yeah.
we just take strength for one, right? On that spectrum, I can play the president of the United States, and I have played the president of the United States. And on the other end of that spectrum, I can play someone who's completely broken, right? And I have played that. A woman who was dying of cancer knew that there was nothing. She was going to die, and she was trying to learn to accept that as she moved, to letting go of her son, really, also as well. So there was, so it's not that you can't play a wide spectrum of roles. It's just that what you have, you are going to bring to a role. I mean, Meryl Streep, Olivia Colman, they're all amazing
Yeah.
actresses, right? I mean, just I get chills just thinking about them. Annette Bening, right? But there's always something that each one of them bring that doesn't change, right? With Meryl Streep, she plays a lot of characters that are in power struggles and on the spectrum of power, right? She either plays very powerful or not very, but yeah, go ahead.
No, no, no. I agree with everything you're saying, to be honest. And I think it's a really interesting conversation topic, which is coming out of this, which I think would be really important for young actors or, anybody who's going through the acting journey at the moment to consider. I know the word which is coming in their minds right now. And I would love to get your thoughts on it and how it ties into what you're saying. Typecast. Do you see this as a negative thing or a positive thing or neither? Is it a neutral thing? Should you play to your strengths or should you just go and be anything? What do you reckon?
It's a great question, Elijah, a really great question. So first, I just want to clarify because I think this is something that really
Yeah.
confuses a lot of actors, the difference between typecasting and branding. So, and the easiest way to kind of get this is a type. Like if you're getting typecast, you're probably not going to have a first and last name or a backstory. You're just going to be that thing. You're going to be college student number two. You're going to be, second guy on the subway, as the lead actor comes in and looks for a spot, right? You're gonna have those kind of character descriptions. A brand, right? If you got cast on your brand, then you're getting cast on the things that make you unique. You have a full name, you have a backstory, and what you are doing is contributing to the story with your own story.
Yeah.
So So that's one way to kind of understand. A typecast is a one-dimensional character, right? There are no small parts, only small actors, I know. But but, there's not a whole lot of thought given to the character. It's only how that character is in relation to the main characters and what they're doing to their journey, and not necessarily vice versa.
Yeah.
And when you're getting cast on brand, it's the other way. Your journey is also
And
important.
this is the thing I think a lot of actors can help themselves in their acting career by doing is by developing that branding. There's a lot of proactiveness which is needed within this industry to go out to do the networking. Networking is so, so important. This word gets thrown around all the time, but what does it
Yes.
really mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not just about
Yeah.
going to events, but it's about creating your own brand, whether that's online, um, within yourself as well, and then putting yourself out there. So instead of just sitting in your home, you can go to the places like in Dean Street in Soho and work there, for instance, and network at different events, which you know that you should be going to. um, Branding is so, so important. If you're going to these events and you're networking and you don't have that personal brand, it won't come across as exactly what we've been talking about this whole thing. I think it's the motif almost of this is the authenticity. It won't come across as
Yeah.
authentic. So the personal brand,
Yeah.
I think it's not something also, and I don't, you're the expert in this regard, but for me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think it's something which can evolve over time as well, especially as you as an actor evolves.
Totally. Absolutely. You are so right. We are not carved into stone. We are constantly evolving, or at least I hope so. That we are constantly evolving. And even if you're not a person who's necessarily evolving, you're probably not the best actor because actors are self-aware and are into evolving, right? This is part of our makeup. But if you're not doing that, you're not growing, right? And even if you just take away that the inner reflection part of evolving, you are physically evolving because
Yeah, we
we're not
change.
set in stone. We are changing. Yeah. And our wants and needs and desires and things that make us happy will change as well. So that'll go from, maybe if you were someone who's played a ton of drama, then you might want to try your hand at comedy, improv, those kind of things, and how you can incorporate that into what you do and how that then also becomes part of your brand. But I never finished answering your entire
Oh, go
question,
ahead.
which was, should actors go for that? Yeah, for the typecasting roles. I think once you understand your brand, so if you think of it like a Venn diagram of how you want to be perceived and how the industry perceives you, and where that Venn diagram kind of overlaps, that's your that is your sweet zone, right? That's the area where you're going to be getting castings, where you're going to be getting auditions. The more that can overlap, the more auditions you're going to be getting. So the more clear you are on shaping your brand in a way that makes sense to the industry, the more you'll get auditions based on that. So knowing what that is super important. And then, yes, go for the low hanging fruit, obviously. Go for the low hanging fruit, you know? So if right, everybody has something, right? So I was talking yesterday to an ex-military guy, who does not look like he's military anymore. But, he was sitting there. He's got sort of long dreads, but he's a powerful guy. You can see he's powerful. He has samurai swords in the background. So, and he's super smart. So there was, but he also had a very kind air about him. Like some people in the military, are very,
Yeah.
he did not have that. He did not have that vibe at all. Like I could see him as a coach, like a professor, that kind of a thing. So know what makes up your energetic signature so that you know what to lead with, right?
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. And I think it stretches further than just the whole networking aspect of it as well, but it goes to every decision you make as an actor in your journey. If you don't know what you're
Yes.
doing and who you are, then you can just become a little bit of everything and you become diluted in that process, which is a problem I have had myself when I used to go to auditions, for instance. Um,
Me too.
just exactly, and I think every actor has feels this all the time.
Yeah.
It's just going into the room when you're waiting in the waiting room, and you see everybody else who looks exactly like you, and you're like, "Oh, okay, great." And then you go into the room, and you're like, "Hey, I can't wait to show you the skills. Please, kind of hire me, and I'll show you a little bit of everything, but I won't be the person I
Yeah.
really am." Um, the roles I've got, um, which isn't millions, but the things I've got, always done something which was different. And by different, I don't mean different to myself, but different to the usual process which I would usually employ when going to auditions. I would make decisions, concerted decisions. If you've got a script, you are told, like, think about what you're going to be doing here or what you're going to be doing there. However you break down the script, have objectives in mind for your character, and have when you do something and you go to pick up that glass from the table over there to take it to your co-star who's on the other side of the stage, make that concerted decision. If you're doing that in the actual acting process, why not do it before? And also for yourself as in terms of the branding, if you're just going to be a little bit of everything, then it's not going to be true. If you don't do those decision making processes on stage, that lack of um, it can. What am I trying to say?
Prep.
The lack of prep, exactly. It can be
Yeah.
seen a million miles away from the whole audience. People can see it. The same thing can be said when you're preparing for things or when you are just working on yourself as a person. So I think it comes down to decision making, finding out who you really are, and then applying it to yourself. And then if you're going to an audition and it says something, for instance, I remember I got this commercial, which was, it said on the commercial brief, wear a white shirt. Okay. And I thought to myself, I personally think this would look better in a white and blue tie-dye kind of vibe. And I was like, let me just go and do it. And if I don't get the role, I don't get the role anyway. Like, it is what it is. And I went, I was much more than the shirt. I went in with that energy as well. Like, hey, this is what I can provide to the role. You like it, you
Yeah.
like it, you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. It's lovely to meet you guys. And I wish you all the best, leave it in the room kind of vibe. And I got the role. And I remember that was the first time I did something like that. And I was like, this is something which might have some legs. And every other time I went for auditions, it
Totally.
worked.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more because the thing is, you gotta go with what you
Yeah.
feel, right? So I know, like, for commercial auditions especially, like, there was one I got, a commercial audition. It was here in Germany for Lidl. I don't know if you know that grocery store chain. It's a worldwide chain, but I don't know if it's in the UK. And I don't think it's in the States either, but it's around the rest of the world.
Okay.
In any case, and they had dialogue in German. And my German is excellent, but it's not accent free.
Well,
So, I don't know, can you help me with that?
absolutely. I'll get on the wait list.
So yeah, exactly. So I immediately called and I knew it was one of those, national audition, like the casting a hugely wide net. And it was my 3rd audition of the day or 3rd self-tape of the day. I was like, "Do I really feel like doing this?" So instead of just not doing it. I called the agent and I was like, "Look, this is in German. I mean, come on. They're gonna want someone who speaks it perfectly." And he's like, "No, no, no, he just wants to see if you can act." That's what the director had wanted, but there actually is no dialogue for this. I was like, "Oh, okay, in that case." So then I was like I did it one and done, which almost never do when I'm doing a self-tape. I always do at
Yeah,
least
same.
3, to kinda right? One and done, 'cause I just didn't care. I was like, "There's 1,000 of these going out, and I'm just gonna do it authentically and straight in and da, da, da." I ended up getting it. It ended up being 10 internet spots, 10, TV spots that played for 2 years, and now they're talking about renewing it for a
Wow.
3rd year. So it ended up being, like, mega money. That was one thing. Then that recently, got on the short list for the Super Bowl commercial for what turns out to be Coors Light that they were shooting, and then
Amazing.
they ended up cutting my role. But, okay, so but the reason I think that I got on the short list of that was I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl commercial, but it's this girl brings home her boyfriend, and they're watching the football game, and the boyfriend comes in wearing the colors of the team opposite to what the family is rooting for. And the dad is like, and da, da, da. Anyway, all these things. And so I did this riff just playing around, like talking to my husband, like, don't kill him. Okay. I'm going to make it worth your while. Don't kill him, And so I was just kind of riffing like I would talk to my husband, like,
Yeah.
and, and I am sure that that was the thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that was the thing that got me to the short list of that commercial.
Yeah. Again, I completely agree with what you're saying. And what was the reason for that? Is because you were true to who you are. And I think, like, believe it was De Niro.
And not afraid to show it.
Yes, exactly. And I've
Yeah.
had these problems myself, and I think it was De Niro who said, um, it's something. Do you know? I'm going to completely botch this quote. So, don't read into this, but it's basically he's talking about do less as an actor. And that doesn't mean do nothing. It doesn't mean don't act, but the whole process
Yeah.
of acting is actually not acting. We're talking about naturalism here, not like, some other type of theater of the absurd or something. But even with that, being grounded in truth is still the paramount process of acting.
Absolutely.
But doing nothing is just about not acting. How would you be in real life? If that universe was the reality, how would you act in that universe? And you wouldn't go out and like
Yeah.
perform per se. And even as a trained actor, what can happen is you can fall into that process of like acting. And I remember for self tapes that I used to do a lot of acting as well. And my script reader, and also actually, yeah, my script reader at the time, who was an actor I used to live with, he used to say to me, just shake it out. Just shake it out. How would you talk to me? How would you talk just if we were sitting down playing some PlayStation? How would you just be yourself at the end of the day? Be yourself. And I think that's so, so true. And this is why you got shortlisted for the role, because you were just yourself. You were just not worrying about how to perform, but rather just being, I think again, that's uh, being the theme of this conversation is being authenticity to who you are as a person, being on brand to who you are, developing that brand and then being on brand to it. But that's, by the way, super cool that you got shortlisted for that. That again shows that you were wanted and your casting director has eyes for you and you're in that space. That's amazing. Well done for that. That's really, really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. It would have been better if I
Of
got it,
course,
but,
of course, of course. But as you
I'm
said,
su
you're wanted. So you've been in
yeah.
that room now. So that's really, really good. I was wondering, I
Thank
read a little bit about your story, but I'd love to hear more about it. How did you get started with acting? I know you took that 16-year hiatus, but what
Yeah.
was the first thing that you did? I think you were at a summer camp, I believe, but I want you to tell.
Yes, very
Yeah.
good.
So
Wow, I can't believe you remember that. Yeah, I was at summer camp, and we were on Oliver
yes,
Twist. I was marched from one room to the next with all the other kids at the summer camp, and we all had to sing and dance and read from a page, and then I ended up getting cast as Nancy, which if you're not familiar with the play, it's
yeah,
the only female role really in it. Although, I mean, the orphans were made up of male and female because it was a co-ed camp. But in any case, and it wasn't even I enjoyed the rehearsals, I enjoyed all of that, but it wasn't until I was standing on stage singing. I still get emotional when I think about it. Singing As Long as He Needs Me and looking out into the audience and feeling what I imagine it must feel like to jump out of an airplane when you with a parachute on, but before you pull your ripcord.
Mm,
So this kind of like floating and being one with everything, and it was like I could feel the audience watching me and listening to me and paying attention, and I could feel that connection. And I couldn't see anyone's face because, the lights were very strong. I could only see the silhouettes. It was that beautiful bubble moment,
mm.
that and it was like a hit of a drug. And I just spent the rest of my life and spend the rest of my life trying to make that connection again, trying to get in that zone again.
That's really
Um,
interesting. How old were you in this summer camp?
about 9, 10. I was young.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had a really
Yeah.
similar experience myself, although my takeaway from it when I was that age was completely the opposite. I did this thing where I was at like Butlins. I don't know if you know what Butlins is in the UK. It's like this budget holiday type of thing. You go there and everybody's like family with kids type of situation. It's a budget holiday, and there is type of camp situation as well. Like you have like areas which you can go and play. You have areas which where you can there are restaurants. There's a lot of things there.
Yeah, okay. So Instant Club or Club Med or one of
Yeah,
those, but
I don't really
maybe.
know how to explain it too well. Interesting type of holiday, but yeah, there's a lot of things. It's like a mini
Yeah.
type of city. But yeah, one of the things that was going on, I think, they were putting on some type of show after bingo nights or something like that. And they wanted the kids to come and perform. And I was like, yeah, all right, let me go. We went behind and we were all like working on Tarzan. And we did it for a while, workshopped it for a bit. Keep in mind, I've never acted before. I don't know anything about what I'm doing, what's even going on. And then the woman who was doing it was spinning in a circle, and she said, "Okay, I'm going to choose who's going to become Tarzan." And all the young kids were standing around in a circle. I did something very naughty at that time, right? When she landed her arrow on the person, I went and jumped in front of the kid, and I was like, "Yes, I want to be Tarzan." And the reality is, it definitely should not have been me. I was a worse person for that role completely because when it got tired to being on stage, there was a bit where I had to cut down the trees and swing from the trees, cut them down, and I see Jane, and I'm like, "Oh, Jane, I'm so happy to see you. I love you." And I go in for a kiss. That didn't go down well with me at all. I went over to Jane, and the guy, he was like facilitating it. He was like, "Okay, now, there's a whole audience there, including my mum and dad." He's like, "Okay, now, to give Jane a kiss." And I'm like, "No, no, I can't do that." And he's like, and he breaks it down level by level. It's like, "Okay, well, give her a kiss in the cheek." I'm like, "No." "Give her a hug." "No." And he's like, "Okay, just say you love her." And I'm like, "No, I don't love Jane. I don't even know who you are." So you say, "I like her." And I'm like, "Okay, I
Yeah.
like you." And I think I like just gave her a high five or something. And I just went off. And I just remember like looking at my mom and dad at the top. I was like, "Oh, this is so embarrassing." But then that's always stuck with me. I love
Yeah.
that feeling. I remember, even though I saw my mom and dad, I remember seeing like the whole audience there, and then I went and did drama forever since school, and I made it to like a mainstay in my career as an actor. I went and studied acting, but it was an interesting starting point. I like how we both started like a camp type situation.
Yeah, and kind of like Clueless
Yeah,
as well. Well, Elijah, this has been such a pleasure. How can people get a hold of you?
you can find me on Instagram. I am Elijah Khan, and also you can, if you want to find out.
Kahn,
Yes,
is
it's
it?
so it's I am, and then Elijah is Elijah, and Khan is Khan. So I'm on Instagram. Um,
H for those of you who don't know what H is.
how do you pronounce it?
Could be. H.
H. Interesting. H.
H.
Okay.
In America, it's
H.
H, yeah.
Okay. Uh, oh, well, that's okay. Nice. Well, yeah, you can find me on Instagram and also on interested in the accent training program. It's www.accentify.co.uk. So it's accent with an IFY, Accentify. You can join the wait and I'll see you there. But yeah, Anne, thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you. This has been such a pleasure. I hope you all got a lot out of that. That really, really interesting conversation that kind of took a turn to talk about branding and being your authentic self. But it's a topic I can tell we both could talk about forever.
Absolutely.
Until next week, you stay your bold and beautiful self. Bye bye.